There will be a talk back tonight with the cast and production crew. So if you'd like to stay for that, it's completely optional. You can get to hear the answers to all the questions that you'll have after the production. I think that's all I have. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the show.
This feels good. Come up to the fire, ladies.
I'm not cold.
Now, Mr. Hale, before we move things about, you explain to Mr. Henderson just what you saw when you came in here yesterday morning.
By the way, has anything been moved? Are things just as you left them yesterday?
Just about the same. When it dropped below zero last night, I thought I'd better send Frank in to make a fire for us. No use getting pneumonia with a big case on. But I told him not to touch anything, and you know Frank.
Somebody should have been left here yesterday.
Oh, yesterday, when I had to send Frank to Morris Center for that man who went crazy, I'll have you know I had my hands full yesterday. I knew you could get in from Omaha by today, and as long as I went over everything here myself...
Well, Mr. Hale, tell just what happened when you came here yesterday morning.
Well, Harry and I started to town with a load of potatoes. We come up from my place, and as we got here, I said, I'm going to see if I can't get John Wright to go in with me on a party telephone. Well, I had spoke to Wright about it once before, but he put me off, saying, folks talk too much anyways, and all he ever asked for was peace and quiet. Although I guess you know how much he talked himself. But I thought if I went up to the house and spoke to his wife about it, though I said to Harry I didn't know what his wife wanted made much difference to John.
Let's talk about that later, Mr. Hale. I do want to talk about that, but tell now just what happened when you got to the house.
Well, I didn't see or hear anything. It was all quiet inside. I knocked once, and it was still all quiet. Well, I knew they must be up. It was past 8 o'clock, so I knocked again, and well, I thought I heard somebody say, "Come in." I wasn't sure. I'm not sure yet, but I opened this door, and in that rocker sat Mrs. Wright.
What was she doing?
Well, she was just sort of rocking back and forth. Well, she had her apron on, and she was kind of pleating it.
And how did she look?
Well, she looked queer.
How do you mean queer?
As if she didn't know what she was going to do next. Kind of done up.
How did she seem to feel about your coming?
Well, I don't think she minded one way or the other. She didn't pay much attention. I said, "How do, Mrs. Wright? It's cold, ain't it?" And she said, "Is it?" And just went on pleating her apron. Well, I was surprised she didn't ask me to come up to the stove or to sit down, but just sat there, not even paying attention to me. Well, I said, "Can I see John?" And well, at that she laughed. I guess you could call it a laugh. I thought of Harry and the team outside, so I said a sharp little, "Can I see John?" "No," she said, kind of dull-like. "Why, ain't he home?" says I. "Yes," she said, "he's home." "Well, why can't I see him?" I asked her. "'Cause he's dead," she says. "Dead," says I. She just nodded her head, not getting a bit excited, but rocking back and forth. "Why, where is he?" I said, not knowing what to say. She just pointed upstairs like that. I got up with the intention of going over there, and I walked from there to here, and I stopped, and I turned to her. I says, "Well, why? What did he die of?" "He died of a rope around his neck," she said. And just went on pleating her apron. Well, I ran outside to grab Harry. I thought I might need help. Well, we went upstairs and, well, there he was, lying.
I think I'd rather have you go into that upstairs, where you can point it all out. Just go on now with the rest of your story.
Well, my first thought was to get that rope off. It looked, no, Harry, he went up to him and he said, nope, he's dead all right, and we better not touch anything. So we went back downstairs. She was still sitting that same way. Has anyone been notified, I asked. No, she said, unconcerned. Who did this, Mrs. Wright? Said Harry. He said it all businesslike. When at that she stopped pleating her apron. I don't know, she says. You don't know, says Harry. No, she said. Well, weren't you sleeping in the same bed as him? Says Harry. Well, yes, she said, but I was on the inside. Somebody slipped a rope around his neck and strangled him. And you didn't wake up? Says Harry. No, she said. Well, we must have looked as if we didn't know who that could be, for after a minute she said, I sleep sound. Harry was going to ask her more questions, but I figured we ought to let her tell her side of the story to the coroner, the sheriff. So Harry ran over to Rivers where there's a telephone.
And what did Miss Wright do when she knew you had gone for the coroner?
Well, she moved from that chair rocker to this chair over here and just sat there, hands in her lap, looking down. I thought I ought to make some sort of conversation, so I said I had come to see if John wanted to put in a telephone. Well, then she started to laugh. And then she stopped and looked at me. Scared? I don't know. Maybe it wasn't scared. I wouldn't like to say it was. Pretty soon Harry got back, and well, then Dr. Lloyd and you, Mr. Peters, and I guess that's all I know that you don't.
I guess we'll go upstairs first, and out to the barn and around there. You're convinced that there's nothing important here? Nothing that points to any motive?
There's nothing here but kitchen things.
Here's a nice mess.
Oh, her fruit. It did freeze. She worried about that when it got so cold. She said the fire would go out and her jars would break.
Well, can you beat the woman? Held for murder and worrying about her preserves.
I guess before we're through here, she may have something more serious than preserves to worry about.
Well, women are used to worrying over trifles.
And yet, for all their worries, what would we do without the ladies? Dirty towels. Not much of a housekeeper, would you say, ladies?
Well, there is a great deal of work to be done on a farm.
To be sure, and yet, I do know of some Dixon County farmhouses which do not have such towels.
Those towels get dirty awful quick, and men's hands aren't always as clean as they might be.
Ah, loyal to your sex, I see. But you and Miss Wright were neighbors. I suppose you were friends, too.
I've not seen much of her lately. Haven't been in this house for more than a year.
And why was that? You didn't like her?
I liked her well enough. But farmers' wives have their hands full, Mr. Henderson. And,
Yes.
well, it never seemed a cheerful place.
No, it's not cheerful. I wouldn't say she had the homemaking instinct.
Well, I don't know as Wright had either.
You mean they didn't get on very well?
I didn't mean anything. I just don't think a place would be any cheerfuler for John Wright being
I'd like to talk about that a little later. I want to go get the lay of things upstairs now.
I suppose anything Mrs. Peters does will be all right. She was supposed to bring in some clothes for her, and some little things, but we left in such a hurry yesterday.
Yes, but I'd like to see what you take, Miss Peters, and keep your eye out for anything that might be of use to us.
Yes, Mr. Henderson. I would hate to have men coming into my kitchen snooping around and criticizing. Of course, it's no more than their duty. Well, duty's all right. But I think that deputy sheriff, when he came out to make the fire, might have gotten a bit of this on. I wish I'd thought of that sooner. It seems mean, talking bad about her for not having things all slipped up when she had to go away in, well, such a hurry. She had bread set? Yeah. Looks as if she's going to put this in there. You know, it really is a shame about her fruit. I wonder if it's all gone. Why, yes, Miss Peters, I think there's some here that might be all right. It's cherries, too. Declare, it's the only one. She'll feel awful bad after all her hard work in the hot weather. Well, I remember the afternoon I put my cherries up last summer.
Well, I must go get those things from the front room closet. You coming with me, Mrs. Hale? You can help me carry them. My, it's cold in there.
Well, John Wright was close. I suppose that's why she kept so much to herself. She didn't even belong to Ladies' Aid. I suppose she felt she couldn't do her part, and, well, you don't really enjoy things when you feel strapped, do you? But I heard that she used to wear pretty things and be lively when she was Minnie Foster. One of those town girls singing in the choir. That was 30-some years ago. Is that all that you want to take in?
She said she wanted an apron. Funny thing to want, for there isn't much to get you dirty in jail, goodness knows. But I suppose to make her feel more natural. She said there was in this cupboard, here. Yes, here it is. And her little shawl that was hung behind the door? Here.
Mrs. Peters,
Yes, Mrs. Hale?
do you think that she did it?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think that she did. Asking for her apron, her little shawl, and worrying about her fruit.
Mr. Peters says it looks bad for her. Mr. Henderson is awful sarcastic in his speech. He'll make fun of her, saying she didn't wake up.
Well, I guess that John Wright didn't wake up when they were slipping her rope under his neck.
No, it's strange. It must have been done awful crafty and still. They say it was such a funny way to kill a man, rigging it all up like that.
That's just what Mr. Hale says. There was a gun in the house. Says that's what he can't understand.
Mr. Henderson said coming out that what was needed for the case was a motive. Something to show anger or some feeling.
Well, I don't see any signs of anger around here. It is light here. I wonder how they're finding things upstairs. I do hope she had things a little bit more read up there. You know, it seems kind of sneaking, locking her up in town and then coming out here trying to get her own house to turn against her.
But Mrs. Hale, the law is the law.
Yes, suppose it is. Better leave stuff your things, Mrs. Peters won't feel them when you go out.
She was piecing a quilt.
Very colorful. Pretty, isn't it? I wonder if she put it quilted or just not.
Did you hear that? They was wondering if she was gonna quilt it or not it.
Frank's fire didn't do much up there, did it? Well, let's go out to the barn and get that cleared up.
I don't see anything so strange. Us taking up our time with little things while they're looking for evidence. Let's see if there's anything to laugh at.
Of course, they've got awful important things on their minds.
Mrs. Peters, look here. This is the part that she was sewing, the part that she was working on. But look at the rest of it. It's so nicely even in here. Why? It's all over the place. Looks as though she didn't know what she was about.
Oh, what are you doing, Mrs.
I'm
Hale?
just going to pull out a stitch or two here that's not sewn very good. Bad sewing makes me fidgety.
I don't think we ought to touch
I'm
things.
just going to finish up this end, Mrs. Peters. Mrs. Peters?
Yes, Mrs. Hale?
What do you suppose she was so nervous about?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if she was nervous. I sometimes so awful queer when I'm just tired.
Yes.
Well, I better get these things wrapped up. They may be through sooner than we think. Now, just where do you suppose I could find some paper and string?
Perhaps in that trunk feed.
Why? Here's a birdcage. Did she have a bird, Mrs. Hale?
I don't know whether she did or not. I've not been here in so long. There was a man around this area selling canaries cheap last year, but I don't know whether she took one or not. Maybe she did. She used to sing real pretty herself.
It seems funny to think of a bird here, but she must have had one, or why would she have the cage? I wonder what happened to it.
Suppose maybe the cat got it.
Oh, no, she didn't have a cat. She got that feeling some people have about them, not liking them. My cat got into a room and she got real upset and asked me to take it out.
My sister Bessie's like that. Queer, isn't it?
Why, look at this door. It's broke. One hinge is pulled apart.
Looks as if someone must have been rough with it.
Yes.
You know, I do wish if they were going to find any evidence they'd be about it. I don't really like this place.
But I'm awful glad you came with me, Mrs. Hale. It'd be rather lonesome for me sitting here alone.
Yes, it would. Wouldn't it? But I tell you what I do wish, Mrs. Peters. I wish I'd come here sometimes when... I wish I had.
But of course, you're awful busy. Your house and your children.
Yes. I could have come, though. I stayed away because it weren't really a cheerful place, and well, that's why I should have come. I never really liked it here. Maybe because it's down in a hollow and you can't really see the road, but I don't know what it is. But it's a lonesome place, and well, it always was. I just wish I'd come down here to visit her sometimes. Well, I can see now that things, well...
You mustn't reproach yourself, Mrs. Hale. Somehow we just don't see how it is with other folks until something turns up.
Yes, well, not having children around does make less work, but it makes a quieter house, and John Wright out to work all day, and well, not much company when he was home. Did you know him, John Wright?
Not to know him. I saw him in town, though. They say he was a good man.
Yes. Good. He didn't drink, and he kept his word as well as most, and he did pay his debts, but I tell you, Mrs. Peters, he was a hard man. Just to spend the time of day with him, frankly. Like a raw one that gets to the bone. No, I can see why she would have wanted a bird. But what do you suppose went with it?
Oh, I don't know, unless it got sick and died.
You weren't raised around here, were you? You didn't know her, Minnie Foster.
Not till they brought her in yesterday.
Well, she, come to think of it, was kind of like a bird herself. Real sweet and pretty, but timid and well, kind of fluttery. She did too. I tell you, Mrs. Fish, why don't you bring her this bill? It might take up her mind.
I think that's a real nice idea, Mrs. Hale. There couldn't possibly be any objection to it, could there? Now, just what else would I bring? I wonder if her patches aren't here. And the things.
Well, there's something red, and I suppose her sewing things might be in here. What a pretty box. Looks as if something somebody might give you. Wonder if her scissors are in here. Mrs. Peters, there's something wrapped in this piece of silk.
Why, this isn't her scissors.
Oh, Mrs. Peters, it's
the bird.
But look at its neck. Look at its neck. It's all other side too.
Somebody wrung its neck.
Well, ladies, have you decided whether she was going to quilt it or not it?
We think she was going to knot it.
Well, that's interesting, I'm sure. Has the bird flown?
Oh, we think that the cat got it.
Is there a cat?
Well, not now. They're superstitious, you know. They leave.
No sign of anyone having come from the outside. Their own rope. Now, let's begin to go over it piece by piece. It would have to have been somebody who knew just the right way to do it.
She liked the bird. She was going to bury it in this pretty box.
When I was a girl. My kitten. There was a boy who took a hatchet, and before my eyes, before I could get there. If they hadn't have held me back, I might have...
Hurt him. Yes, well, I wonder how it would seem not to have any children around. No, right? Wouldn't have wanted a bird. A thing that sang. She used to sing. I killed that too.
We don't know who killed him.
But I knew John Wright.
It was a terrible thing that was done in this house that night, Mrs. Hale. Killing a man while he slept, slipping a rope around his neck that choked the life out of him.
His neck. Choked the life out of him.
We don't know.
If there had been years and years of nothing, and then suddenly a bird to sing to you, it would be awful. It would be still.
After the bird was still. I know what stillness is. When we homesteaded in Dakota, and my first baby died, after he was only 2 years old, and me with no
How
other...
could you suppose we'll be through looking for evidence?
I know what stillness is. But the law has got to punish crime, Mrs. Hale.
Well, I wish you'd seen Minnie Foster when she wore a white dress with blue ribbons and stood up there and sang in the choir. See, now I wish that I had visited her. And that was a crime. See, now that was a crime, and who's going to punish that?
Oh, we mustn't take on.
I might have known that she needed help. I know how things can be for, well, women. I tell you what's queer, Mrs. Peters. We live so very close, but so far apart. We all go through the same things, just different kind of this. If I was you, I wouldn't tell her that her fruit's gone. Tell her it ain't. Tell her that everything is all right. Take this into prove it. And you may never know whether it was broke or not.
My, it's a good thing the men couldn't hear us. Wouldn't they just laugh, getting worked up over something like a dead canary? As if that could have anything to do with... Wouldn't they just laugh?
Maybe they would, but maybe they wouldn't.
No, Peters, it's all clear except the reason for doing it. You know the jury when it comes to women. If only there was some definite thing. Something to show. Something to make a story about. A thing that would connect up with this strange way of doing it.
Well, I got the team pulled around. Well, it's pretty cold out there.
I'm going to stay a while by myself. You can send Frank out for me, can't you? I want to go over everything. I'm not satisfied we can't do better.
Well, do you want to see what Mrs. Peters is going to bring in?
Oh, I don't think they're very dangerous things the ladies have picked out. No, Miss Peters doesn't need supervising. For that matter, the sheriff's wife's married to the law. Ever think of it that way, Miss Peters?
Not just that way.
Married to the law. George, I want you to come with me real quick. We ought to take a look at these windows.
Oh, windows.
We'll be right out, Mr. Hale.
Well, Henry, at least we found out she was not going to quilt it. She was going to, what is it you call it, ladies?
We call it nodding, Mr. Henderson.
Hi, I'm Emma. I was the tech advisor for this show. Hi, I'm Lauren Davis as the stage manager for the show.
Hi, I'm Josh Pride. I played Mr. Hale.
Hi, I'm Caleb Ivey, and I play county attorney.
Hi, my name's MJ Mason, and I play Mrs. Hale.
My name is Lauren Clapp, and I was Mrs. Peters.
My name's Joel Luger, and I was Sheriff Peters.
And I'm Jake Hilberg, and I directed this piece. So, the floor is open. Any questions?
So for the actors in general, all of your characters seem to be have pretty much like an equal social standing, or at least the guys had an equal social standing and the girls had an equal social standing. What kind of things did you think about to like differentiate who your character was from who the other characters were?
Well, I know one of the things that at least Lauren and I thought about is our relationships with our husbands and how that would change our characters. Obviously, her husband is a little bit more, you know. And my husband is a little bit more of a doofus. And so we were kind of basing off of those relationships, maybe how that influenced us. And that kind of shaped our characters a little bit more, in addition to what we had originally come in thinking.
With the guys, they all kind of are all in the same social standing because they are men. But within the show, everyone has their own kind of amount of power, whereas Josh, I feel we agreed you didn't. But there was kind of a little bit of a, I don't want to say struggle, but struggle between Caleb and I as for who is in charge. Because this is my town, and I like to think I'm in charge, but he is also the attorney appointed by the state, and he is actually in charge, and it's frustrating for me, and it causes a lot of tension. So it's just little things like that to figure out who is actually that and how to differentiate the characters that way. If that makes sense, that's kind of.
But you are right in that like there is this big divide between the men and the women in the play, and there's a different social standings just in those two groups, essentially.
Yeah.
Jacob, tell me a little bit about designing this set and especially working in a black box area and how you kind of incorporated the show in that way, because it's traditionally not meant for a black box stage,
Yeah.
correct?
No. I was given the script at the beginning of this year, and when they gave me the script, I read through it again and realized that it was written for a normal stage, the proscenium box set that everyone loves and knows, and they were like, okay, Jake, now we're doing it in the black box, so you can't have a big set, you can't have a lot of the common things you would have in a normal staging situation. So I had to try and figure out how I was going to put this specific show in this space, and this was not my original staging of it at all. We went through like 4 different ground plans to get to this one. And what I was trying to do with this setup is I wanted to bring the audience more into the story than they normally are in this play. When you have a proscenium stage, normally the audience is very much excluded from the action, excluded from the story. They're just kind of passively sitting there watching it. I was hoping that with this setup I could make you either feel like you were maybe the wall that they were staring at, or you were part of the room that created this atmosphere. And then at certain points I also wanted you to feel trapped in this same small confined space that these characters are. The big moments in the show that you may have seen, like the birdcage come in, the different patterning and the lights over them, those are huge symbolic moments for the show, especially. And I wanted you to almost feel the tension of being trapped in a place that you didn't want to be. And the only way to get out of that birdcage was to make the right decision.
It's real.
How many times has this play been performed, and is it based on a real life event?
This has been performed here. We are only performing it twice. It's been being performed since the 1920s when it was written. This is actually based on a real murder that took place in southern Iowa. It's the John Hosek, I'm not quite sure how you say the last name, trial. And the fun part about being a student director is I got a huge educational process of having to research everything to do with this show before I actually got to put it on. So I something really cool about the playwright. She's from Davenport, Iowa, which is right across the river. And she was born there and went to high school there. And that's where she was kind of raised. So most of her shows take place in Midwestern towns that are very similar to that small Davenport, like old country home kind of feeling. And then she moved to Des Moines, where she went to Drake University to get a degree in journalism. And while she was in Des Moines, she was working for a newspaper. And there was a huge murder trial that happened in December of the year 1900. And it involved a 60-year-old woman being arrested. They had come into the house, the neighbors had, and found her husband, who was not dead at that point, had an axe taken to him. And they arrested her for the crime. And throughout the entire trial, Susan Glaspell was sitting there taking notes for her articles. And she realized that nobody took the woman's story seriously. Nobody wanted to listen to, well, he wasn't that great of a guy, or there were issues happening at home that people don't understand. And she thought that that was horrible, that they wouldn't even consider a different side of the story. And she was initially convicted of the crime and sentenced to life imprisonment. Luckily enough, she got an appeal, and they figured out that the evidence that they were using was not truthful enough to convict her, and she was released. So that is one of Iowa's still oldest cold cases.
The way I took it as an actor, I think it may not, I mean, maybe you didn't see it, but I take it as a moment of realization where what I'm going to do or what I'm thinking I might do is breaking off completely from what is expected of me as a woman, as someone who's married to a man who is the law. It came as like a time of realization for my character that what I'm about to do is not what I'm supposed to do, but it's what I should do.
It's definitely a weird experience, I would say, taking up theater as senior in college. And having no prior experience on stage other than like beatboxing, which is what I've done my entire life. It's definitely a strange experience. I was in Mackinac, which was the fall play, but I didn't have lines other than the 2 words, "it's time," and that was it. So like, I didn't have to memorize anything other than where I needed to stand. And so it was really a strange experience being out here. And it's a process, really, like memorizing lines, I always imagine being one of the hardest things that anybody could do. It's so much in a given time. Plus you have schoolwork, you have all kinds of stuff you have to worry about. And I mean, I only had something like 40 lines, and it took me so long to memorize. But I did it, and it was like, after memorizing lines, and you have to understand the character you're playing as. And it's easier for people who've done it before because you can put yourself into the role of somebody else, but I haven't. And so I thought a lot about like who the county attorney was, like what his social status was, and how he would present himself in front of women, in front of men. And I guess it was really once you get the costume on and you understand the lines, at that point you can develop the character. And of course Jacob helped me a lot with that because it was not an easy task. So yeah, it was fun, and I encourage anybody who's never done theater to give it a shot. I mean, it's definitely, it's an experience, and this is something I'll never forget. It really is. It was a fun time.
Any questions?
I have one. So I'm a total theater nerd. You guys know this. But I was very interested in the hairstyles that you chose, and I was wondering why you. I know why Caleb did, because I wanted to. But the rest of you, why did you choose to do that way? Or what was? Did you do research, or did you just get your hair off your face?
Helen kind of just suggested
Do
it.
it down the middle.
She is just like, back then they would have parted it down the middle, and we just said, okay.
Our costume designer and costume advisor is not here tonight. Ellen Dixon works for Augustana Theater. She also does all of the choral and band uniforms, and she is a very well-used tool here at Augustana who does not get enough appreciation for all of her hard work. And we were so happy to get a chance to work with her. And all of these costumes, she helped us pick out all the hairstyles. She helped inspire. She answered all of our questions about quilting. that none of us knew how to answer.
And also, we should thank Shannon Ryan for being our student advisor.
Another thing that I've worked through while I was reading through the show, because I took the whole first term of this school year to do all the research and stuff, and I tried to figure out what is my right answer. What would I maybe have done in this situation if I had the courage to do so? And I looked through the clues that they are hiding. In today's society, none of these clues would be strong enough clues to convict somebody of murder. A dirty rag, a broken birdcage, a dead canary, unless there's a note on it that said, like, yes, I killed my husband.
And it's interesting too, because whether that evidence was sufficient or not, if they were to have shown it to the county attorney and he thought it was something that was worthwhile, he would have taken all the credit for it. Which is possibly another reason why it's chosen like not to say anything to him, because don't give the men any more satisfaction than they already get from being superior at the time or whatever.
You also have to consider that the only clue that they end up hiding from the men is the bird. The men have seen every single other clue, and they just didn't notice the significance of each of those clues. All right. Thank you so much.